All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the contributors meeting. Today, I'm going to be your host. So let's get started with the triage. So Pasha was a primary for this week. So Pasha, with you.
Yeah, sorry, I just joined. Hi, everyone. So during this week, I covered few items, but I wanted to mention some specific item that people, as I understand, people asked before for this feature, but now it's appeared again. They want to be able to define hard refresh mode for application as a default one. So in case if you just refresh application, even each 3 minutes, you want to do it in hard mode for some specific application, and we don't support such option today. It's always normal. What you can do, you can add annotation, but after each refresh, this annotation disappear. So they opened back on that. I created pull request, and after discussion with Alex and Jan, I understand that it cannot be like this because it's create some additional risk that it can cause problem on their environment. So I wanted to discuss what we can do and how we can achieve such behavior for these users. And that's actually my experience from this stage.
Can we, and I think you added this into the list of topics, Pasha?
Yeah, yes.
Maybe should we go ahead and discuss it right away? And then
it's from triage, so Harry asked my experience. It's what I mentioned.
So you're mentioning about 7774, is that right, Pasha?
Yes.
I'm going to open here.
Yeah, I know this is the thing that we discussed on Slack, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I also think that the use case behind that, or the problem that the user has, is I think it would be that they added the Helm charts, right? So for example, they raised the image version, the image tag or something like that, but they don't actually update the Helm chart version, right? So it's basically something like going for the latest tag on images, something like that. And if you do a soft refresh in Argo CD, it won't pick up the change. Right? Yes. Because the version is the same. It's in the cache, and after 24 hours, it will eventually rebuild the cache. But until then, they will have to do a hard refresh to re-render the chart with the same version.
Yeah, this has come up before. The other one was with customized. So I think they had a remote reference to a moving target in a customized thing, and they wanted it to refresh every single time, or hard refresh. And I think this was earlier this year or last year, and then we also kind of eschewed this behavior because we didn't feel it was a good thing to support.
My main concern was that if we let end user to request this hard refresh, it can be surprise to admin, because let's say you basically if you run Argo CD for many tenants, and then one tenant says, okay, I want to do hard refresh all the time, and then everyone else suffers. So at least I feel like I can understand that it's probably this is what people do, and I was hoping to help them somehow. But I'm on the fence if that feature even supposed to be. Are they doing something wrong? Probably. Maybe they should not use moving. They should use exact version. It's kind of it's maybe they're doing something wrong, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I would also agree.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So I think in general, sorry, I think like since Customize supports, referencing an external URL, people end up using that, and then the expectation is when that changes, I should also see those changes in my cluster, and they end up doing that. But yes, you're right. Unless we are able to say that this hard refresh is going to only happen within the sandbox of my resource consumability, this is risky, because if everyone in the cluster now suddenly says, hey, I want a hard refresh, that's like the worst case, you're definitely going to have a problem. If even one person says that I want to have a hard refresh, that can lead to resource issues too. So it's really hard to decide. Sorry. Yeah.
But maybe we should just provide such option on system level for administrator and say, and just provide warning. Okay, you enable this, you take this risk if you need it. Okay, so it's in the end we just should say, okay, it's risky, it can create problems for your cluster entirely, and be careful. We already do it for another things like replace operation during sync and so on. It's
I think so what users are going to do if they don't have that option is probably they will set up a cron job or something like that, which uses Argo CD app get -- hard - refresh, right? So that would basically be their workaround, and probably this causes as much confusion for an Argo CD admin, and it's probably even harder to track down. I'm not sure.
I feel like if users have access to, if they can set up this job, that means they already have admin access to Argo CD. When you said so, I was thinking that, oh, maybe it's a good, instead of building a feature, we could give a YAML of such job in documentation and suggest it as a workaround. It would be the same. And then, administrators can use this job to periodically refresh, hard refresh applications by user, by demand of end user. I know that there is open pull request. Actually, it's not pull request, it was merged. We have a feature now to bulk refresh applications. How do you think if we ask that users if that, so basically now it's possible to go to application list page and then just click refresh and refresh everything at once. I don't know if it will help, but maybe we can ask them if.
Quick question on the hard refresh. Does the hard refresh also refresh the cluster state cache?
No, it's only about Git right now.
It's only the
right now. It's
okay. I mean, if it's only the Git, if the impact is not super high, I would say, like, it is high, but it's not super high. Like, it gets higher and higher if almost every user in the system requests for a hard refresh in there. Yeah, that's when it's high. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those features, and I kind of tend to agree with Pasha here that if as an admin you're allowing it, you're effectively taking a risk. But if the admin knows what she's doing, that's probably okay. Because I do see the use case as real, where somebody's referencing a remote customized URL, and that probably wouldn't get refreshed before the next 24 hours. And this effectively ensures that you get it finished at the next heartbeat.
One thing with this approach, like this is philosophically, rollbacks are kind of meaningless now. When you're referencing something under that changes underneath you, the git commit hash that you are using to sync to or roll back to, that is no longer like what you're rolling back to, because the thing that the moving target underneath you has changed meaning. That was one of the rationales for, or at least trying to convince others like this is not a good practice. Use one of the biggest benefits of GitOps.
Agreed. You could roll back to the previous Git repository SHA, but at the same time, I mean, you could roll back to a sync for a previous Git repository SHA, but then the underlying reference is probably totally different and unrelated. How do you even make sense of the fact that it changed or did not change?
Yeah,
There's a general trouble with allowing remote references for any of our.
yeah, but you can specify the remote reference using a tag
Correct,
or
yeah.
a SHA, and you should, right?
Right.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's
Because-
what we would encourage, and but then they wouldn't have this problem if they were doing it that way, right? I mean, help chart is a little, it's kind of like a similar problem. Like, so you have an umbrella chart, and then maybe you have a. Actually, is that what they are doing here? It's I don't know the exact thing they're doing with the helm chart. What is the scenario that it changes underneath them?
Yeah, it's quite vague, right? Vague, or vague, how it's pronounced.
Do we want to consider allowing a different resync, a hard resync interval per application? So I mean the 20, like, so we have a 24-hour limit for across the board. I think we would, yeah, I was thinking if that was able to be reduced at an application level, but I mean, I don't know, I'm hesitant to suggest that. Essentially, we would just store it in Redis for like a shorter duration.
You mean the manifests of for rollback? Or
No, I mean, just to solve this use case that basically the reason it's it lasts for 24 hours is because we cached it for 24 hours.
right.
If we cache it for shorter, then you effectively get a hard refresh for you know, it could be like 10 minutes. But you might be hesitant to do that across the board, and then at the application level, you could do like a 10-minute expiry. It would, I mean, it's kind of like this similar result, but achieved a different way. I mean, I'm inclined to do nothing about this, by the way, but I'm just trying to figure out other options.
Okay, maybe one question, like, would we change opinion about doing anything here? Like, if let's say we've got a 50 thumbs ups on that feature, would you consider doing it or not? If it appears to be extremely common and extremely popular request.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I mean, I first try to dissuade people from doing that practice because of, you know, the reasons I mentioned. But I mean, it could be a use case that I just don't see or understand, but it's like a real valid one. So yeah, I mean, I could be persuaded otherwise.
Yeah, I'm asking, maybe we should just investigate and,
It's kind of like
It-
the
it-
Helm values in the Git repo. I didn't really
yeah.
think that was a valid use case, but that one turns out it's like extremely, like a lot of users wanted that. So
But my question, as far as I understand, we already got a few requests around this feature before. Is it like bugs that opened frequent, like from time to time, or it just was, or it just opens like one time per year? What is frequency of such
I think
issues?
last time I saw it, it was the similar pull request that was adding the same type of feature, maybe like 6-8 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it bubbles up.
But from my understanding, just once this user opened this pull request, one more person said, "Oh, I need the same." So it's just from my understanding. And actually, I don't see a lot of work and like a huge problem to provide to their administrator to define such options. Maybe they use small charts and so on. And again, to my feeling that they take this risk and they're responsible for enable this feature or not enable. Argo CD just should say, okay, it's risky. If you want, you can enable. It's in my opinion. Just
Yeah,
so,
I'm trying to
when
find some. Yeah, I know that basically the hesitation to add additional setting is, at least in my opinion, we have so many settings already, and that's why every new setting it just adds up, even if it's small. Yeah, and I was trying to find something like some compromise. What do you think if we introduce an administrator level setting that admins can specify cache duration per repository, and maybe they can use it for other use cases? For example, they might say this repo never changes, or I feel like very confident about that repo and you can cache for longer, and someone else can say for this particular repo cache for the shorter amount of time. So basically, if we can find something which is not specifically for this use case but useful for it as well, we can be more open.
It can be a bit problematic use case because it can be synced, for example, once per month, and you don't know when this sync will happen.
Yeah, I'm saying the feature that I described, they could say Nexus, this particular repo test Helm chart, only cache it for like 3 hours, and only admin can do it. So it's already admin level setting.
So
and
oh yeah, it's one of the technical hesitations we had with this was that the PR that originally I think it was 8 months ago that came in about this wanted hard refresh every reconciliation, right? I think this is a similar request if I'm not mistaken, and that was one thing, technical thing we didn't like, which was we expect to be able to reconcile early and often and with no consequence to an application. But if every time this thing is coming in to reconcile and then we have to go do a hard refresh, that one app could slow down the whole controller. So a shorter expiry is almost like a compromise, because if they change it to 10 minutes or 5 minutes even before the cache expires, at least if we're doing a burst of reconciliations on the same applications, they will allow to get through during that 5-minute window period and reconcile early and often, versus the original PR. I wanted to like just have a setting that always hard refresh every reconciliation. So that might be a compromise from a technical perspective that I would prefer over just like a setting always hard. Do you remember, Alex? That was
the hesitation. I agree with you. Like we just knew that if you do a hard refresh on every reconciliation, it will just not work. It can only work if you have like one application or like 10, up to 10, and then it would be super slow. But if we just expire cache early, I think it would be good for, it would work. Basically, the end users would have to wait up to like 3 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever they set in the setting. And I like that option. It doesn't look, at least it can be useful for something else as well.
so that one I would be more amenable to, rather than the setting to always hard refresh. Because of the it places the burden less on the controller and more on the repo server. I mean, well, sorry, that's a mistake. It spreads the load across time, I guess. It reduces the load on application controller for sure.
Maybe, Pasha, can you ask the person, can you propose that option? Like ability to...
Yes.
It's almost like we're trying to find a solution that will not pollute, that will not add too many settings specific for this one use case. And it's kind of, we already have a way to control how much time we store manifests in cache.
Yeah, it's
now we give you more granular control, which is
I think it's a safer implementation as well, since the only thing you're changing is the time in which the manifests are cached for. So
could you repeat what the proposal is?
Ability to control duration, how long this cache is going to be preserved per repository.
Okay.
I was suggesting application level, but
okay, yeah.
And where would that configuration be? By the admin?
I expected, okay, yeah, I was suggesting per repository because this is where, yes, admin, in my understanding, admin control it.
Got it.
I don't know. What do you think, Jesse? Like application, if you make it per application, then there will be questions like, how come it's not part of application configuration? So what I was thinking, something very light, like maybe one additional environment variable, which has a repo specific setting, and this way we're not advertising that as a first class feature. It's for kind of edge cases for users who for whatever reason have this Helm chart that updated without changing version, but it's a good workaround for them, so feels like a compromise.
I suggested application because it felt like the use cases were to have this happen at the application, but I'm okay. I don't have a strong opinion on where the setting is, so
I think Jesse, on that note, I would say, I think since the setting is actually on the repository, because that's what you're caching and refreshing. Like in a situation where there are multiple applications referencing the same repository, would there be a use case where this setting applies for one but doesn't for the other, even though that's the same repository? I'm not sure how that would work though. That's how I'm thinking on that, Jesse. So from that point, like making it a repository specific configuration. Sound more useful.
Okay, so let's take this example for this. I think they're referencing a Helm chart, right? That is, can you scroll up? It's referencing. Okay, so I don't know, saying Nexus, some
Mhm.
Nexus Helm chart that seems to have a moving target underneath it. So no one else is gonna no other repo. I guess you would only single out this repo is the use case, right? So I guess it would work for this. Okay, so it's, I mean, I guess a repo setting would work for this specific use case. Yeah, again, I don't have a strong opinion where the setting is. I just think that the approach of doing it by exporting cache earlier is a little better for the controller than it is like having an app setting that always does hard. So
cool. I think we can at least propose. We can ask the person if he's willing to implement another approach, and then in PR we can decide.
yeah, when I would see if we could first dissuade this practice in the first place. But yeah. Anyways.
Okay, I will ask this person and you update. What is this here?
Yeah, they need to understand that the practice of moving targets underneath the referenced repo means they won't be able to roll back correctly. So
Okay, so I guess we reach an agreement here. How to move forward on this issue. So Pasha, anything else on the triage for this week wanted to mention?
Yeah, on this that was asked in discussion.
Okay, so moving forward, we would need the volunteers for next week. So anyone could volunteer for be the primary and the secondary for the triage for the coming week. Anyone?
I can volunteer for the secondary. My name's not on the list. It's Keith. Chong, C-H-O-N-G, yep.
Okay. Anyone willing to be the primary for next week? Nope.
I can be primary. Yep. Can I put maybe my name?
Okay.
I wasn't primary for a long time.
All right. Just get over with this. Okay. Cool. So next topic. We have application set. There's no name right next to it. Who suggested this one?
Yeah. Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sounds like you're in a tunnel, but we can hear you.
That's odd.
Yeah, it seems, no, but we can hear you well. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah, try to ignore the tunnel. Yeah, so we've gotten a great PR from Michael to the application set repo in the merge generator, but it looks like we're hitting the issue of kubectl not supporting applications of resources that are over a certain size. So in our case, we have a custom resource definition, which because of this PR, because of the way the changes to the CRD are structured, it's causing us to overflow what a standard kubectl apply can do. So this has implications for application set install. Specifically, the application set install instructions and also the Argo CD install instructions say, if you want to install application set, if you want to install Argo CD, you do kubectl apply and then the install YAML. Unfortunately, this PR would break that because, again, that CRD is over the 262, I think that's 256 kilobytes that is supported by kubectl, and so would require us to switching to something like kubectl replace. So I guess my question is, one, have other folks hit this in the past and have a good strategy for dealing with this? And two, if not, how against switching to something like kubectl replace would we be?
So the application set CRD itself is too big, is that correct?
Yes, due to this new PR.
Okay.
I think that, yeah, I think it's because we already have the spec for, so basically the merge operator reuses definition of all other operators, so we're kind of almost doubling the size of
exactly
CRD definition. Yeah, I was just sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, one rollout I think might have hit this at one point, but we did drop the descriptions to help get past it. I was going to ask, are descriptions of every field included as part of the CRD?
They are. I don't know if they're included in what. I don't know if when the metadata is applied, if they're included in that. Like I know there is some shrink. There is a shrink that occurs to ensure that what is included in the resource annotation is smaller than the actual CRD itself. I don't know if descriptions are removed from that, but we haven't tried removing the descriptions. If there's an easy way to do that, I'd be curious.
Yeah, KubeBuilder has a way to set description length to 0, I think.
Okay.
It's like it's a one-line option, and I think not KubeBuilder, the controller gen is the tool that generates the CRD. So it's a one-line change to drop descriptions that should help, because I think descriptions are included in the last supplied annotation. Everything is. It's like a duplicate of the whole thing. To Alex's point about repeating the I wonder if somehow the object that we reuse doesn't get re-referenced, and we're just kind of copying, or the generated thing is just copying and pasting it.
I wanted to suggest to just try to, like, I have a feeling that CRD CRD definition, it just has open API definition embedded into it, and you can have defined types and then point to the types. So it's possible that we can just define an additional field type, and we can store a definition of every operator as a separate type, and then just reference this type in the merge operator. And this way we don't have to double.
Yeah, Alex is suggesting the controller gen might be doing something dumb, which is like, oh, I have this type, and then it inlines it every time where it's used, rather than references it every time it's used, which wouldn't surprise me, because even with rollouts, we use controller gen, but then we do a lot of post-processing of the CR to massage it the way we need it. Like we have extra Kubernetes annotations. We have to drop some of the things it generated because of I think some of the validation is not correct. So it wouldn't surprise me if controller gen is like duplicating and being inefficient about the the types that it embeds inside the Open API spec. That would be something I would check too.
Internal reference look like? Do you know where I can find an example of that?
I don't know. I know that it's possible to define types and just reference them, but I don't know. And I think if you look at the like a container spec, and that's something that's used in like a init container and then ephemeral containers and then the regular container list. I think that's an example of where it is reused, I believe.
Gotcha. So it wouldn't be a case where the entire spec is defined elsewhere. It's just within this one spec, there's shared definitions.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Gotcha. So it sounds like there may be some strategies to reduce that. Around defining an open API type and then referencing that rather than doing duplication. Is there a way to do that without needing to manually maintain the open API portion of the CRD? Like to still rely on the ability to automatically generate CRDs from Go code with KubeBuilder tags?
I would try to just implement a post processor, generate, get the tag generated by, by the same generator, and then just massage it and change it.
Yeah, I mean, we could be totally wrong about it. Like controller tools might be doing the right thing, and then it's a valid size problem of your CR. In which case, I think we can look at description dropping. But it should be quick. You should be able to check really quick if it's doing something dumb. And then I do recommend trying to use controller gen to get you 90% of the way there. And then post-processing, like we use a mini Go application that just manipulates YAML. You can see that.
Yeah,
it's under the hack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember the reason you can't have recursive types in CRDs is something about not implementing references. So it's possible that even if the Swagger doc, which Alex just linked, can contain references, it's possible that that doesn't also apply to the Open API spec that's embedded in the CRD itself. But I'll check. That just seems possible.
And maybe like the last resort, let's say nothing works. Jonathan, how do you think if we just drop the merge generator spec part? What that means is it will be, it would be like a disadvantage of it. It will be limitation. We would be saying, oh, if you use merge generator, you would not get the validation. Is it an option at all?
Good question. I'd have to take a look.
I feel like it depends on how far outside the bounds we are.
Yeah. You probably have a different problem if you drop validation, that your controller then has to be.
Oh yeah.
So
it won't.
Yeah. So this is actually a problem rollout phase because I think we didn't have good validation for a while. So if you allow unvalidated objects to enter the system, your controller has to be able to marshal every single object correctly, unless you switch to an informer that deals with unstructured objects, which is a big undertaking. That's actually what both the workflow controller and the rollout controller do, because they didn't have validation for some time. But yeah, so the consequence of allowing malformed objects is that if one of them doesn't marshal correctly to your data type, it basically hoses your entire controller, because the informer framework just can't deal with that problem. Like it can't deal with one malformed object. So that's why validation is kind of important. But if you choose not to use validation, you have to use an informer that deals with unstructured object, and then switch during reconciliation, you switch you convert the unstructured to a typed definition. And it only affects one app or one rollout when the bad thing happens instead of all of the rollouts.
So I hope it will not be. Hopefully we will find a better solution rather than just dropping the validation.
Yeah, gotcha. Thanks.
Okay.
Since we already ran out of time, do you want to just hear an update about release status? Because I don't think we have time to discuss anything else.
Yeah, I was the one that posted that. I was just curious how the 2.2 testing was going. And, how close. Yeah.
It's basically, I think we kind of stuck a little bit because there was a bug that was not clear how to reproduce or fix. So the problem was related to our bug caching that we used to improve API performance. And so basically we could not reproduce it ever. It happened once, and then it was not clear how to fix it. And basically the solution that I'm proposing right now is that I start blaming Casbin. I start suspecting that maybe Casbin itself, the Casbin is a library that we use for our bug implementation. Maybe the library itself has a bug. And I looked into a list of changes related to our bug caching in Casbin, and there were fixes related to multi-threading. And so what I just did, I upgraded Casbin, and now I'm hoping the issue is solved. And we're still using Intuit as a way to validate releases. So it was deployed pretty much at half of Intuit Argo CD instances. I plan to deploy it to more instances today, and basically I think if the issue is still there, high chance it will be reproduced. And so what I'm proposing is that if we ever see this issue again before we release, I would just roll back our bug optimization temporarily, because that's the only problem that we have right now, which is kind of holding the release.
So something caused it to be worse than before? What was it?
No, it was, I mean, it basically, we've got false. So what happened is that user created a project, and project has a correct RBAC policy, but requests were failing with a permission denied error incorrectly. So we cached false response. And API server was saying it was incorrectly responding no. And then the API server restarts, fixed the problem. So it was clearly a caching problem. And we saw it just once, and it never happened again. And the code looks kind of very straightforward, and I cannot even imagine how could this possibly happen. And so the only other option was that probably Husband itself had a bug.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, this is basically the status. I feel like we're ready. We can just create a release, except this one bug. And yeah, the only way to validate it right now is to let end users test it. And I'm hoping that maybe Casbin upgrade actually resolved it. Yeah,
so we might do a release next week. Is that the?
Yes, yeah. It's I think we should be able to do it maybe at ArgoCon. Okay. Yeah, ArgoCon is a good date to look for.
Okay, I think I might squeeze in one of the tuning stuff that I needed to expose the GitOps engine tuning to the Argo CD so they can be controlled by environment variables. I didn't get to that yet, but I'll do it by this week.
Okay, thanks everybody. Yes, we're over 2 minutes. So I moved Jan's topic to next week's meeting, and see you all next week. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.